Welcome everybody to the Single Dad Project, the home edition. Today is wrong calendar. Today is Thursday, August 28th. Friday's the 29th, August 28th. Haven't recorded a show in the studio for about 3 weeks. This is the Relational project month, August. Just to do a quick little recap. Back in July, with 6 months left in the year, one of the ideas was to do a project per month. So July was spiritual month, August is relational month, September is intellectual, and so on. We shot some shows for the spiritual, and I didn't get around to doing the editing and the posting of those shows. So those will be coming out. And then going into the month of August, the relational month, didn't record any shows in the studio. I was recording here, and going into this week, I decided I wanted to just do a recap instead of trying to go back and edit all these videos and get them ready for the online space. And part of the reason to do the recap is because a lot of things happened, and it gave me a different focus for what I wanted to do with the Single Dad Project. And with that, I want to go into what this change in focus is with how I started the show. I had mentioned that for me, the idea of the Single Dad Project always starts with you, the single dad. That's kind of where everything starts, in whatever domain you find yourself in. It's just you. Even if you're running with a teammate or a bunch of teammates, the world that you live in inside of this little meat suit is still just you. So the first sphere is you, dad. The second sphere is to me pretty obvious. It's your kids. If you're a single dad and you don't get a whole lot of time with your kids, then it's my humble opinion that I think you should make your kids second after you. Take care of yourself and what you need to do, and then focus on your kids. And for me, originally, when we started doing the show back in April, the third sphere was the world, everybody else. Just throw everything in the bucket. And with the last, I would say, 6 weeks or so, I've changed my mind on the sphere numerology, and I've added into my philosophy the third sphere being your ex, my ex. If you're a dad, you made babies with somebody, and if you're not with that person anymore, obviously the theme of the show is single dad. So if you're not with somebody anymore, that person, your ex, to me is now in that third sphere, and I'll explain why as I get to it. And then the fourth sphere, number 4 being then you throw everything else in the bucket. I want to give a reason why there was a philosophical change. Originally, when I did the show, when we started the show, when I was thinking of these 3 realms or spheres of ideas, the X was always in the world, the third sphere, everything else. And the reason for that part of the reason for that was I didn't interact with my ex a whole lot. My daughter's a teenager. For the last, we'll say 3 years in her high school years, me and her mom have interacted, obviously, but at, it's not been a thing for me where I'm like, I'm focused on that aspect of life. We had to deal with each other, and it sounds bad when you say it that way, but like when you're not involved with somebody, like say for example a coworker, you have to deal with that person in your life somehow. It sounds bad, but it's not. So my ex and I had to deal with each other these last 18 years now that my daughter's 18. But really the focus for the show has been these last 4 years, because I changed a lot of things in my life. And for me personally, it was just the focus was on my daughter, trying to be there for her as a dad, and dealing with my ex as I had to when it came up. And so when the idea for the show came up, I was like, well, yeah, the first fear is you, the dad, take care of your shit. Second sphere is your kids. It's super obvious to me. And then the third sphere is just everything else. And these last, like I said, 3 to 4, maybe 6 weeks or so, a little bit has changed in the sense that my daughter her life has transitioned. She's gone from high school to college. And in one aspect, I would have to deal with her mom less because now my kid's older. She's going to be doing her own thing. But in a weird twist, like life shows you how not smart you are sometimes or aware. And these, like I said, these last 6 weeks, I've been in more contact with my ex because of this transition happening with my daughter's life. And it made me realize that I guess in my mind I was pushing the aspect of mom out of the picture because I wanted to focus on the things that were near to me, myself, and the things that I'm trying to do, and my daughter, and trying to throw her in the bucket of the world and everything else. And in the grand scheme of things, I've always said this to myself. I don't know if I've ever mentioned it to my daughter, but like, if I didn't have my kid, I mean, this is, you go through any relationship. If I didn't have my kid, I wouldn't be talking to my ex. So that's one realization. The second one being that obviously she's been there for the last 18 plus years of my life, including when we were married, but I'm kind of taking a separate path when we were divorced and had to do the single parent thing. So obviously she's been there and we've had to interact and play along to get along, all that kind of stuff, and, try to raise our daughter as best we can in the situation that we find ourselves in. And so just on that level alone, it's like, that's a separate sphere. I can't just throw, if you will, I can't just throw that aspect of what's going on in my life into this sphere of the world and everything else that's going on. It's just, in a way, it's not fair. In a way, it's being ignorant on my part. Even though I've never had like a bad relationship with her in that sense, it's dumb ideology on my part to say, hey, put the X in the sphere of the world and everything else with work and all the bullshit that happens and all that kind of stuff. And it's, your closest spheres are you and your kids, which is yes, but there's a semi buffer between the world and your kids, and that's their mom, if you're a single dad. And you have to engage with that. And we've been engaging in the last, like I said, 6 weeks with this transition of high school to college for my daughter. So that's a new addition to the Single Dad Project. It's not a big deal. It's just, it's an awareness and awakening on my part that I was like, well, this totally makes sense. I've just been neglecting it because of how I was trying to see the world. And it wasn't that I was trying to diminish my ex's part in everything that's going on. I think I was just in my own head about things, and I've tried to be respectful of the role that she plays as a mom in my daughter's life, and the role that she plays as my ex, and me being a single dad. And I even, out of respect and all the friends that I have that are single moms, we did, the whole month of single mom episodes, doing interviews with single moms, which I'll also be having my friend Heidi back here soon, in about a week or so. So that's the change. Instead of going from 3 spheres, we go to 4. It's not a big deal, but it's just having more awareness of, okay, obviously my ex is here, and what role does she play, and how do we work together to be good parents to our kid? And I think that's important. It's an important inclusion, and I was given that awareness these last 6 weeks. So that's the new thing. Like I said, I haven't recorded in the studio. The month of July was the spiritual project, and I think I said this on the show, it's recorded, it's just not out there. When you see this, it'll be coming, because I'm going to post this first just to get things rolling again. But one of the things that happens when you dive deep, and well, at least in my experience, one of the things that has happened when I dive deep and I go into spirituality and I try to ask all these questions of, like, what is God? Who is God? How does all of that play into my life? And all those philosophical, esoteric style questions that kind of get your mind running in circles. One of the things that happens is I go inside and I go to the mountain and I don't talk to people. That's just me personally. I've seen it with other friends where, they go missing for a little bit and you're like, hey, you okay? And they're like, yeah, I'm fine, just chilling, doing my thing. And then when they come around, they come out of the cave and they start talking to you. They're like, yeah, man, I had a deep dive with God and my religion and my spirituality or whatever. And because it was the month of July and I was telling myself for this month I'm going to go into the spiritual project, I kind of dove into that direction. And it's led me to a few things. One of them being is just this little sense of calm with all the chaos that's been going on in the world. Little sense of calm with the chaos that's been going on with the transition of my daughter going from high school to college. And all other aspects, I could be freaking out, and I'm not. One of the things that came up when I was going through the spiritual month was just this little saying and that popped in my head that God provides. Whatever it may be, whether I need it, a friend needs it, my daughter needs it, God always provides. It's just, there's always a way. Even when I don't see what that way looks like, I don't feel like anything is happening, I feel like I'm in a hole. That little saying kept coming up, God provides. So that's what was happening with me as I was going through the month of July. We recorded shows, I just didn't get around to editing anything or posting anything. And the transition for my daughter, we were already in the middle of it, but I started training her for college. Training her in the sense that she got a workout routine from her college coach. And she asked me if I would help her with it. The interesting thing was once we got down to school, she's all moved in and everything already, but once we got down to school, she was telling me as she was talking to some of the other girls that um, they didn't do the workout that the coach gave them. And I started laughing kind of sarcastically because the coach gave them a bullshit workout, um, coming from a trainer mind. And I'll talk about that more when we get into the physical month. I think it's going to be October, but yeah, that was kind of a sad thing that you get paid a lot of money to come up with programs for kids and you can't even um, articulate what that program is supposed to look like. That's kind of sad. So, anyways, going into this transition with my daughter, the and I'm gonna take it in spheres. So the first sphere being me, single dad, second sphere being my kid, third sphere being her mom, and then fourth sphere being the world. So going into the relationship um, month of August, as my daughter and I were doing this training, for me personally, to have her ask me if I could help her out with the workouts it's hard for me to put into words. Like you, as a dad, you want to have good relationship with your kids. You want them to do well for themselves. At least this is how I feel. I want my daughter to do well for herself. Like be strong, be healthy, be smart, all those things, right? But I don't know if it's this thing that we have inside us as men. It's like when somebody asks you to help them out, it feels good because in a way it's like they recognize there's somebody here that can help me with the thing that I need help with, and I'm going to that person to ask them for help. And as a dad, single dad, when you have your kid come to you and say, "Hey, Dad, and my coach gave me this workout. Can you help me with it?" It just I can't put it into words. It felt really good, and it threw a lot of things off for me. One being, again, this is the first sphere, single dad, working on me, working on yourself. I'm giving you my stories as a way to hopefully help you get connected with you and become aware of what's going on in your life. Originally, when my daughter was getting ready to go to school, um, I was working overnight in a warehouse and I wanted to quit. That schedule was, the work and the schedule is fine, but the schedule and me trying to be there for my daughter and not getting a lot of sleep it was killing me on the inside. And so when she graduated high school, I was all ready to like cut ties with that job and go find something else. When she asked me to do this workout with her, to help her with the workout, my thought process was like, let me take you to the gym and train you, and I'll help you with. You don't have to figure this shit out. I'll explain it to you as we go because the coach that put this together is a dummy for putting it together like this. There's no structure to it basically. Um, and so for me, instead of cutting ties with the job and starting somewhere else brand new, I was like, fuck me, I gotta stay here a little bit longer just so I can have my daytime with my daughter. So I'd work overnight, get a few hours of sleep, wake up, go pick her up, take her to the gym, and we were training in the gym for an hour or so. And that just altered my plans. Um, and as single dads, again, we go through a lot of shit. Um, I have a, have a lot of stories from friends that are single dads that it's like, man, I can't believe you're going through that bullshit, and I feel for you. Um, a lot of it, we make choices on how we're going to live our life. And sometimes those choices or the decisions that we make go against the grain, in the sense of some dads that I know, some single dads that I know, work their fucking tail off. And you expect that from your dad on some level. But if you don't see him, there's a huge piece missing. And so when I say some of the decisions that we make go against the grain, that's, to me, that's going against the grain. You're working your ass off. You're trying to make money. You're trying to be a provider. And at the same time, you're not there. I went against the grain in the opposite direction. I was there, made every competition my kid was in. I may have missed one or two. I mean, let's not bullshit ourselves, but I damn near was at every one. Um, but the sacrifice I paid was financial. And my daughter asking if I could, I mean, she wasn't even asking me to train her. She just said, hey, I don't understand this workout that my coach gave me. Can you give me a hand? But it gave me an opportunity to spend more time with my kid before she goes off to college. And this is right in the middle of the spiritual project. So I was like, man, this is a blessing. I get to be with my kid more. But the weight of being at that job and like dealing with the shit that I was dealing with, I was like, man, this is, I can't wait for this shit to end. Because in a way, that decision to be there for my kid, I fucked myself over financially. And the thing is I'm not worried about it. I'll bounce back. It's not a major thing, but it plays on your mind when you do that as a father. It's like, which path do I go? Do I bust my ass and work my ass off and make money, and my kids got money, but then they're never going to see me? Or do I make as much time as I can, not make so much money, but at least my kid knows I'm there? And I know there's a middle ground. I get it. Like, I'm sure there's people watching that go, I do both. I'm there for my kids and I work and blah, 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 and whatnot. I'm like, I get it. But often I think that's the exception to the rule, unfortunately. Unfortunately. So going into the relational month of August, again, I found it to be a blessing that I get to spend more time with my kid, having this spiritual focus for the month of July. And then we go into August, into the relational project, and my relationship with my daughter was growing and blossoming in a way like I could have never predicted or imagined. And it was a beautiful thing in the sense that, like, I think she saw, got a chance to see the sacrifices that I was making for her. And going into the relational project, um, we, well, for me as a dad, obviously, like I mentioned a dozen times here, I want to be there for my kid. But it's one thing to just be there, and it's another thing to have open conversation, open communication about shit that's going to go on in her life, shit that's happened in my life, and how hopefully she can relate to the stories that I'm telling her. So, you know, we're talking about drugs and alcohol and all the shit that can happen in school, all the partying and whatnot, and me just letting her know, like, and this is the advice I gave my kid: how you raise your kid is one way, how I do mine is a different way. If you agree, that's great. If not, it's fine too. But I was basically telling her, I can't tell you what to do and what not to do in school. When it comes to that aspect of life, all the bullshit that you're going to see, all the partying, all that kind of stuff. Because there are parents out there like that say, no, you better not drink, you better not do this and this, that. And I told her, I said, even if I told you that, I know that you're going to do it anyways. I mean, that's human nature. There's too big of an influence, especially in the aspect of life that she's going into, that's not going to be at the doorstep, at her doorstep at least. So I'd be naive to say to her, like, don't drink, don't party, don't do this and this and that. The best I could do is tell her, this is what you're going to see. These are the things that I want you to be aware of and watch out for and be careful. But within those conversations were also conversations about how your dad makes money, what your dad's been doing the last almost 20 years of his life. There was talk of relationships and what's happening in the world and the differences between how her mom thinks and how I think. And one of the things that I'm grateful for in especially the last 3 weeks, getting her ready to go to school, is we had made an agreement that we would stay in touch, my daughter and I. And it sounds silly to say it, but like, you talk to your kid, whatever, if you have that relationship. I know some dads that don't have that kind of relationship with their kids, they don't even talk. So it sounds silly to say, but this is kind of a mini truism, right? At least in this aspect of society that we live in. As parents, once the kids get older, it's just like that. That closeness, that communication kind of starts to go away. And if we can build any bridges to keep that going, it's an amazing thing in society today, I think. And so I was grateful that when my daughter and I were talking these last 3 weeks, I said, hey, do you want to keep these conversations going? My schedule with her was every Tuesday and Thursday. I was picking her up from school, taking her home. She gets ready. I take her from home to gymnastics practice, wait there, from gymnastics practice, take her back home, go to work. So I asked her, I said, do you want to keep these conversations going? And she's like, yeah. She said, I wanted to talk to you about that. She goes, I want to do something like that. And I said, cool. Then we'll set up our Tuesdays and Thursdays to talk on the phone. Tell me what's going on, good, bad, whatever, how you feel. Doesn't matter to me. Just like, let's talk. And she agreed to that. She gets to college. And but here's the cool thing: things change for her, and I knew they would. Everything's kind of like it flows, right? And she sent me a text and said, hey, Dad, with my schedule and everything that's going on, practice and everything, she goes, Tuesdays and Thursdays are going to be tough. Can we talk on Mondays and Wednesdays and maybe even Fridays? And I was like, heck yeah, just let me know when. So going into the month of August and this relational aspect, this focus on relationship, the relationship sphere for me personally was just like, just no matter what happens, just be there for your kid. And I ended up quitting work early. That's a different aspect. That's sphere number 4 now. But I wanted my schedule open and ready for anything that she needs from me as her dad. In the second sphere, which is my kid, going from July to August, like I said, the relationship, I feel like it blossomed. Like something beautiful came out of what hasn't happened in a long time, with the transition when your little kid goes from this cute 9-year-old to a 15-year-old, and like all these things that change. And obviously all the shit that happened with 2020 and not seeing my kid as often as I would have liked. So all these things, it's like I felt like I had lost a piece of her. And especially these last 3 weeks, I feel like I've gotten that piece back. And for her, the focus, the second sphere, the focus was helping her with her training before she goes off to school, helping her mentally kind of be aware of the things that are coming for that, from that college experience, as best as I can describe it to her. And one of the things that was coming up for my kid was that she was feeling self-conscious, not confident about her abilities to do the things that she wanted to do in school. Part of the reason, and I found this out having the conversations with my kid, was that her high school coach was a big fucking douche that put her down in regards to these abilities that she had. And I've been a coach, and I understand like when you're criticizing a kid to make them better, but one of the things that I always told my kids when I was coaching them, I would say to them, the things that I'm yelling at you about, because a lot of times I'd yell with the, I mean, I had wrestlers, so it's a different animal. The things that I'm yelling at you guys about is so you guys understand what we're trying to do here. There's a lot of limitations that you put upon yourself, especially when you're facing somebody else in front of you, like in a wrestling match, you're facing another person, another guy, another girl, and you're matched up one-on-one. There's no teammates to come and help you. So the limitations that you put on yourself because you think you're not strong enough, you're not smart enough, you don't have the technique or whatever, like all of that is bullshit. When you get on the mat, throw all of that stuff out and just do what you got to do to win the match. Obviously within, sportsmanship and all that kind of stuff. So to hear these stories of my daughter's high school coach criticizing her and all this shit, you could see it on the field. She was one of the best kids out there. I even told her one of the football games, they had all the cheerleaders do push-ups every time the team scored a football touchdown. And in this game, they blew out the other team. The other team wasn't so good, so her high school football team was scoring touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. So the cheerleaders had to do 7 push-ups every touchdown, or 7 plus the next touchdown, 14, 21, and so on. And out of the whole line of cheerleaders that you could see on the track from the stands, my daughter and like 2 or 3 other girls were the only ones doing like solid push-ups. Not even the guys on the team were doing solid push-ups. So it's like, I don't know what you're criticizing my kid on. And, all the things that she was doing as a flyer on all that shit. So it's just, I don't get it. I don't understand where the criticism was coming from on that level, that she was so uh, distraught. Is that the right word? As far as like her abilities. And again, this is going into the third sphere with my ex. My ex called me and said, "Hey, um, she's having a really hard time with this. Is getting really self-conscious about her abilities, and you know, thinking that when she goes to down to school, down to college, that she's going to get kicked off the team because she's not good enough and all this kind of stuff." And it made me hyper aware because I used to train. The majority of the people I trained were women when I was at the gym, and a lot of these issues come up for women. The self-consciousness, am I good enough, am I worthy enough, all that kind of stuff. On a for me, what I saw was like on a hyper acute level. Guys experience it too, but we don't go into that level of I'm not good enough, so I got to do all the things to make myself good enough, and it's like all a mask. And in the sense of females, it's like overcompensating for your how much makeup you put on. Um, if you have a nice body, how much skin you show. Oh, just all this stupid shit. Especially because it wasn't self-worth for themselves. It was self-worth for like how do I look good for these guys that I want to attract. And if you get down to those animalistic levels, it just there's no worth even coming from the guys that you're trying to attract. We don't look for that. So when my ex was telling me my daughter has these issues going on, that she doesn't feel confident in her abilities, she decided that she was going to send her to a tumbling coach. And I agreed to take her. I'm the one that has the open schedule, so I can take my kids. So we go to this tumbling gym, and she meets her coach, and my kid, after the practice was done, my kid's eyes were lighting up, and made me real happy. I'm like, what did, man, now that we're kind of having these open conversations, I'm like, what did the coach tell you? And she's like, oh, he said I got my good technique and this and this and that. I'm like, there you go. That's a good coach, not this piece of shit high school coach that you had. And I said, more than likely, that's probably what you're going to get at college. So for my daughter, the second sphere, helping her understand her abilities on the physical level, and her abilities on the mental level and intellectual, like how smart she is. It's like you've got this. Don't let all these other people, and this is the world sphere, don't let all these other people push you down. And so going into the third sphere with my ex and these last two domains of spiritual and relational, like I said, on the spiritual side, I was just doing my own thing. Um, but going into the month of August, me and her mom started communicating more because, like, my kid's a freshman in college. She's going to be a cheerleader. We're doing all these like Zoom calls, and what's going on with the school schedule, and all these things, right? And when are we taking her down? When are we taking just all the minutia, logistics and stuff. And there was many times where those interactions could have gone south. And by going south, I mean like we could have been in arguments over stupid shit. But I think for me, going into the spiritual project and getting an understanding of where I am and what's going on in life, and how I'm trying to deal with it, and having an awareness of what my ex must be going through. When I went to college, my mom was sad, happy, sad, more sad that I wasn't going to be around, cried a lot. And as guys, at least at that point in time, it went over my head. I mean, I saw my mom crying, but I was like, why are you crying? It's not a big deal, da 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 da. And one of the things I tell people is you don't understand the emotional roller coaster ride it is to have a kid unless you have a kid. And I think that statement is even more hyper for women than it is for men. We feel it, but not on that kind of level. And so even when I had conversations with my daughter, I said, look, your mom didn't get a chance to go to college. She's most likely going to be living this experience through you because she always wanted to go to school, had a lot of obstacles in front of her that didn't allow her to go away to college. So I said to my daughter, I said, I know when you guys are doing the stuff in the dorm, trying to make everything look nice and pretty and whatever, everything's going to be in its place. If your mom says, oh, the chair would look nice in the corner, and you say, no, I want the chair in the middle of the room, I said to my daughter, I said, don't do that. Just let your mom have her way. You can change things up after we leave. And that was when I started realizing I can't put my ex in the third sphere at the time, just being piled in with everything else in the world. This woman and I together helped raise this child, so I got to give her more respect in my philosophical thinking. And so even scheduling, trips to go down to college, and now we're planning on football games, so my daughter's gonna be cheerleading for the football team and all this kind of shit. It's just like, that's a world I can't ignore. I can't just bunch her into like the bullshit that happens at my work, um, whatever, dealing with coworkers, trying to pay bills, shit like that. That's got to be a separate domain. And so that's when the philosophy started changing, was getting all this preparation ready for my daughter to go down to school. So now that I have the third sphere is my ex, like I said, it was a formation that was happening, going from the spiritual project to the relational project. And here we are, August 28th, at the end of the month, finishing up on the relational project. One of the things that my ex told me as we were driving around, I can't remember if we were driving back home, driving to I think we were driving back home. She has a friend that's also a single dad. I don't talk to my ex about single dad project or anything like that. It just came up in the conversation. She has a friend who's a single dad, and he has a son that's 17. And he's been trying to get in touch and communicate with his kid. And he was telling her things like, I text my kid and he doesn't text back. I've had that experience. But my ex even told him, her friend, she was like, well, my daughter lives at home and I text her from the living room. She's in her bedroom and she doesn't text back. So they're in the same space and she doesn't text back. That's not anything to be worried about. But she was telling him, you gotta try and be there in his life. Don't just text him, like, be in his life. And these are the things that I've been saying on the show. And the way, if I put it into the spheres, the way I'm looking at it is he's very much in his core as far as like in the first sphere, but he's thinking from that sphere in the sense like he's being kind of selfish in a way. And I'm not trying to put this in any kind of bad light because we all go through it. But he's not thinking in the second sphere, which is his kid. What does his kid want? You're the dad. We know what you want. You want to have that relationship with your kid. Some dads don't. That's a different story. This is this guy's story. So what are you doing to reach out? Text messaging your kid and not getting a response back is one avenue, but it's not the culmination of the multiple things that you can do. And so as my ex was telling me this story about this guy, her friend, she told me that the son, 17-year-old, doesn't drive yet, never got his license. And she suggested like, hey, take him out driving. And the response back from the friend was like, well, he doesn't want to drive. Well, so what? Fucking take him out driving. Just like show him like you're the dad. And one of the things that I mentioned on the show was like, do the things that step into your kid's world, do the things that they're interested in, right? So if your kid's not interested in driving, that's pulling them out of their world into your world. And in a way, it's like not even your world, it's like the world. And it's fourth sphere, it's like, hey, eventually, man, you got to learn how to drive to get by in this life. It's not a necessity. It's not a super requirement, but like, I'd rather have wheels and the ability to drive than not in this world. And for me personally, it's like driving from one end of this country to the other. It's amazing when you do road trips like that. So, I mean, that's the conversation that I would have with my kid if I was this guy. But the thing that made it almost comical for me when she was telling me was that her friend is an artist and the kid's an artist. Like the kid wants to go off to like art school. And she was telling me that he didn't want the son going off to art school because it's not going to make money and this, that, da, da, da. Which is fine. Like that's one thing is to try to have an outlook for your kid to say, hey, it's not that you can't make money as an artist, but it might be a little bit more difficult given the society that we live in right now, right? So that's valid advice. Doesn't mean like don't go pursue it. Just maybe as a dad, you help your kid find avenues where they can be an artist, be happy in that realm, and still make money somehow, right? But that's beside the point. The point is the dad's an artist and the kid's an artist, and the dad wants to connect with the son, but he doesn't know how. And it's just like, it's right there under your nose, man. You're an artist and your kid's an artist. That's how you connect. And that goes back to the advice I mentioned on this show before. Step into the world. Your kid's already an artist, and that's what you do, bro. You guys have a connection. So having my ex tell me that story solidified all the decisions that I've made for my kid these last 18 years, but for sure these last 4 or 5. And one of the things that my ex said, and again, this goes back into the reshaping of the philosophy of having a separate sphere for my ex. One of the things that she said was, at least with you were always there for her. And these are coming from my ex. She was like, all the things that you've done, she's like, kids see that from their parents. She goes, if you weren't around, she would know that, she would feel it, she would sense it. She goes, but you were always there. And I don't tear up and get emotional because she said that to me. I tear up and I get emotional because I feel bad for the guys that are trying and their ex doesn't recognize that. I feel bad for the guys that are fighting in court, fighting the money battles, fighting the emotional tsunami that they feel all the time, just to see their kid, just to talk to their kid on the phone, because all these forces are conspiring to keep them away from their kid. That's what makes me sad. But the fact that my ex said that to me, that she's like, your daughter knows that you are there. I wish that kind of relationship, that kind of openness between two parents, whether they're together or not, for all of the single dads out there. Like, this is second level, man. This is a different, from the stories that I hear from guys that fight with the ex, battle with them as often as, that interaction happens. It's like, it's such wasted energy when you could just, and I know it's hard, just focus on yourself and what your life means to you. Take that and who are you to your kids? What kind of a dad do you want to be? I can only speak from my experience, but those were my two focuses first. And in some ways, because of that, I've had a peaceful, if you want to call it that, peaceful relationship with my ex. And now, here we are taking my kid down to school, and she's acknowledging that aspect of all the effort that I've been putting into trying to be a good dad for my kid. Was that she's like, your daughter knows that you are always there. And honestly, since the divorce, that's all I've ever wanted, was just to be there for my kid. So with that, we're going into the intellectual sphere, intellectual project. For the month of September. And the intellectual project is more of like, what are you feeding your brain? What are the aspects of where are you putting your mental energy? And it's already starting to be a challenging month for me because, like I said earlier, I quit this overnight job that I had. So I'm going into the month of September, for lack of a better term, penniless, jobless. And I find myself in a position where it's really, really, really easy to go down in the dumps mentally. And this is why when I was putting the projects together for the show, I start with the spiritual project, because everything else will kick your ass unless you've got that core stabilized. And the thing is with the spiritual, you don't have to do anything. Spirit is spirit. You don't have to do shit. just align with it. And from the spiritual project, we go on to the relational project, because the only relationship that matters ultimately is the relationship that you have with yourself. How you have that relationship carries over into how you relate with your kids, how you relate to your ex, and how you relate to the world. And then going in from the relational project into the intellectual project, it's like, okay, I'm here. What do I do with this gift God gave me of using this mind to better my life, to better my relationship with my kids, to better my relationship with my ex, to be a strong man in this world? That starts between your ears. That's the mental project. That's the intellectual project. So with that, thanks for tuning in to this special edition of Single Dad Project from Home. We'll be in the studio next week, starting the intellectual project. And until then, I'll see you later.